Hello everyone, and welcome to this short tutorial that provides an introduction to the EBSCO BusinessOS Premier database. This is a leading business database that's found in every major business school in the United States. It has over 2,200 full-text business publications, nearly every top-tier academic journal and every business discipline, hundreds of full-text trade and industry publications, hundreds of full-text business magazines, and also company reports that provide SWOT analysis. The EBSCO BusinessOS Premier database is accessible via the home page of the library. Click on it here, and this will bring you into what is the opening page of the database with search fields. And what I'd like to do is start here is to do a browse for publication. So as I say, there are over 2,000 publications in this database, and let's say that you wanted to look up one particular journal. And so you click on Publications, and here you type in the name of the particular publication. In this case, it's going to be Harvard Business Review. And click Browse. And here you can see full text, October 1st, 1922 to present. So the entire run of Harvard Business Review is available in this database. So if I click on here, and what it does, it brings me into that Harvard Business Review section of the database. And I could, if I wanted to, I could search specifically within Harvard Business Review, or I could browse. And you can see the dates over here, starting with the most recent year, 2019. It goes all the way down to 1922. And you click on any one of these, it'll bring up the content for that year. Let's so you can see how this works. Click on 2017. These are all the issues that were published in 2017. Let's just say this particular one here, the July-August, and it looks like there are 35 articles that were published in that particular issue. And go down here. Now what you can do as far as the display, as far as making good use of this database, I would suggest going over to Page Options, click on here, and click on Detailed. And when you click on Detailed, it defaults to Standard. You click on Detailed, it will give you more information usually about the article, so you don't have to click on each title to see what it's about. And after I click Detailed, you see a little more description. Sometimes it's substantially more, but it'll give you more description. And also I always go Page Options, and I always say that I want to change it to 50, so I don't have to keep scrolling from page to page to page. So as you go down through here, you can see all of these articles that appeared in that particular issue, the July-August 2017 issue of Harvard Business Review. And what you could do is you go down, you could say, gosh, I like this one, I like this one, and I like this one. And what you're doing when you click on these little folders here is they're going up to here, and you click on here, and the 3 articles I chose have now been saved. And what I can do is I can click on Select, and let's say, well, maybe I have some second thoughts about this one. Let's unclick that one. So I've got 2. And what I can do then is I can export them to myself. I can save them as a file. I can email them. I can print them, whatever you'd like to do. You can also, and I would strongly recommend that you do this, is if you click on here, what you can do is you can create an account in this database. And what you can do is you can save your research. So if you're doing research, say, on a Monday night, and you've spent a half hour, an hour, you found some articles, you can log in here, save those, and then when you resume your research, say on Thursday or Friday, you can pick up where you left off. The very first time that you use this link here, it will ask you to set up an account. It's a very easy process. After that, you just simply log in with your username and password, and you're ready to go. So that's how you browse for a publication. So let me go over and also show you how to retrieve an article. So we're going to go over to New Search. Now, this is a common question that comes up. You'll be given perhaps from a professor, maybe a citation to an article, maybe one of your classmates, you're working in a team, and you need to retrieve that article. Also, in the scavenger hunt assignment this week, you will also be asked to provide information that's missing from a citation, so you need to be able to look things up. Let's say, for example, that you have the title of an article called Reflections on CEO Compensation. So what you do is type in on CEO compensation. And over here, look here. So if you leave it on select a field, what you're telling the database to do is to retrieve every single article in which these words, Reflections on CEO Compensation, appear either in the title of the article, the title of the journal, the abstract, or the subject headings. However, you have more power than that. You can click on this and you have all these different options. You could say, well, I know that's the title of the article. I'm going to click here and set it so it's going to search as a title. Now, I also happen to know that this article was written by a man named John C. Bogle. And let's just take his last name because that's fairly distinctive and say Bogle. And we could leave it on select a field, but we could be a little bit more specific and say it's author. So we're going to say reflections on CEO compensation has to appear in the title of the article. Bogle has to appear as the author. Click on search. And sure enough, there's the article. And you can see, and just so I show you how to read this in case you're aren't aware, this is the title of the article. It is by John C. Bogle, that's the author. This is the journal in which the article was published, the Academy of Management Perspectives. It appeared in the May 2008 issue. That particular issue is volume 22, issue number 2, and on pages 21 to 25. So it's 5 pages long. It has one chart, one graph. This abstract, this is is a summary, sort of a one-paragraph summary about what the article is about. Down here is our subject headings. And this is really a very important part of this database as well as other article databases. Every article in the database is tagged, and there are millions of articles in this database. Every article in the database is tagged with one or more subject headings that describes the content in the article. Now, the thesaurus is a database, is a part of the database which contains all of these subject terms used by the database, and it is searchable, and it is right up here, and I'll show you in a minute. Sometimes a source of frustration for students is that the subject headings used by the database are different than what you would have chosen. For example, you may say, well, I'm doing some research on cruise lines, and that's the subject heading I want to use. Well, if you went into the source, you would find that the database does not use cruise lines, it uses cruise industry. So you're required to use cruise industry as the subject term, not cruise lines. Also, tax regulations. Let's say tax regulations is a subject term that I want to use. Well, if you go to the thesaurus, you will find that it will say use tax laws. So let me show you this. Let me clear this off here, and let's go to the thesaurus. And so go in here. I'm going to browse the thesaurus, and I just mentioned cruise lines. Let's type cruise lines. Hit enter. You see here, cruise lines use cruise industry. So you click on here, and what you can do is you can then put it, when you click on here, it'll put it right up here, and then you can search on cruise industry. Now let me show you another example here. Just want to make sure you're familiar with how this works. I said tax regulations. Hit browse. Tax regulations use tax laws. So if the question was, is tax regulations a subject term used by this database? The answer is no. It is tax laws. Okay, so that's how part of how one would browse the source. Let me show you a couple of other examples here. Let's try electronic banking. You're doing some research on electronic banking, and you also are doing research on real estate. So electronic banking, I'm going to hit browse. I'm going to see if there's a subject term. Electronic banking. Electronic banking, they use online banking. So electronic banking is not a correct subject term. It is online banking. So we click on here, and then we click here. And you can see the online banking shows here, but there are also alternative terms. So this is really a very powerful way of doing research, because oftentimes there's not just one search term or one subject term that is used to describe your topic. Sometimes there are numerous terms, and so this is a really good way to identify alternative terms that you can search with. But in this case, I'm going to say online banking, and I'm going to click add. I'm going to pop it up there, and now I'm going to go here, and I want to say real estate. And let's see if that's real estate's not used. They use real property. So I'm going to click on real property. Then we're going to click on here. And this is what's called a scope note. It's what how the database is defining real property. And you can see the broader and narrower terms. You might want to use some of those. But in this case, we're just going to use this. I'm going to click Add. So now, if we were to run a search, we would get articles that have been tagged with the subject heading of online banking and real property. Click on Search, and we get 6. So not very much. But these are the search results here. You can see where real property and online banking, they are subject terms. So, and there's other examples here and further on down. So let me also show you now how to do a search from this portion of the database. So let's try, we're going to do some research on health insurance and bankruptcy. So if you leave it on select a field, and this is, when you're in a database, you have a number of different options available to you, and everyone does research differently. But what's important to know is how the database works so that you can make decisions as far as how you want to use it. If you leave it on select a field, you're telling the database, bring back every single article in this database in which the words health insurance appear either in the title of the article, the title of the journal, the abstract, or one of the subject headings. Sometimes that might bring back a lot more than you would prefer. Sometimes people might say, well, I want it just in the abstract of the article or the title of the article. But I'm going to leave it on select a field. Same thing with bankruptcy. It's going to appear either in the title of the journal, the article, the abstract, or a subject heading. And then I'm going to hit search. And I have 1,478 results. You see that number right there? Well, that's far too much to work with, in my opinion. So we have ways of filtering down those results. And look over on the left-hand side here. Now, it says full text. One thing you should be aware of that in this database, like most of the article databases that we license at the library, they're not 100% full text. On average, they run about 80% of the journals are full text. It is a judgment call on your part whether you want to click on this, because if you click on this, it's going to limit the search results just to full text. So for example, this number 1 here, this is not full text. And I know it's not full text because there's no link to the full text. Whereas down number 2 has a link to PDF or the HTML version. So this is not full text. And if I clicked on this little full text button, this would disappear, as well as the other articles that are not full text. If you find an article that is not full text in a database and you want to use it, what I would suggest is you send me an email. It's over at the reference desk at the library, and I will try to get it for you from another institution. I get a lot of these requests. I think my track record is at about 95% of the time I'm successful. No guarantees, but as I say, 95% of the time I am successful at getting the article for you. So it's a judgment call on your part whether you want to limit to full text or not. In this case, just so you can see how this database works, I'm going to click on full text. So we are at 1,478 results. I'm going to click on this, and that's going to cut it from 1,478 down to 809. So there are 809 articles now in the search results, and they're all full text. That's still too much to work with. And so let's go over here. So the 809 articles actually cover a period of 1903 to 2019. Well, let's say that for my paper, I want something that's a little more current. So I don't need something reaching back to the early 20th century. So I could either type in a year here, or I could just take this bar and just drag it across. And say I'm going to bring it to 2009. And it's, what did that do? Cut it down to 339 right here. So that certainly had an effect. I could, if I wanted to, I could also click on this here, scholarly. There will be assignments. They may be discussion questions or research papers throughout your time in college where your faculty member will say, I want scholarly sources. What you can do by clicking on this button is to limit the search results just to articles that appear in scholarly sources. So I'm going to click on this, and it's going to cut it further from 339 down to 44. So now I've got, and I could, if I wanted to go further, you can drill down by language, by geography, by publisher or publication. I'm not going to drill down any further. I've got 44. That's pretty manageable. And of the 44 here, I as I showed you earlier, you can put them in the folder. But these are articles which are on the topic of health insurance and bankruptcy. They are full text. They are scholarly, and they cover the period of 2009 to 2019. So you can see, don't ignore this section of the database. Some students overlook it. This is a very powerful way in which to refine your search results. Let me show you one other search here, and then I'll let you go. We'll move on to the advanced video, and I'm going to just try electronic banking, and I'm going to say fraud, and I'm going to leave it on select a field, click search, and what do I get? 6. So much narrower search results. One thing I would suggest when you do a search like this, take a look at the abstract, look at the vocabulary that's used by the author, because it's the authors who write the abstract, and look at the subject headings that have been tagged to the article. Sometimes this is a very good place to go to find alternative terms. So in any case, this is the end of our first video, which is the introduction to EBSCO Business Source Premier. And stay tuned, and you'll be watching the advanced introduction to EBSCO Business Source Premier. Thanks so much, and good luck with your research.